Hey everybody, welcome to episode 75 of Powerbombshells. I am Sam, that is Mel. We are not your typical broads talking about your typical wrestling, and we have lots of wrestling to talk about.
Lots and lots and lots of wrestling.
And as we've seen in the comments over here, Brad is actually talking about how much wrestling he needs to watch and get caught up on. Nikki and I are only halfway through episode 3 of G1, so we're way
Oh,
behind. Yeah.
oh, okay. All right. Well, I will try not. I'm sure. I
I
don't
mean,
know how much
it's all right.
spoiling has been done for you at this
Not
point,
like a
but
whole lot, but it's
I am caught up to.
oh yeah, I'm not even close.
Yeah, I'm so not this morning, obviously,
Right.
but they don't have an event tomorrow, which is great, which will be
Yeah.
Monday. And I'm gonna watch today, tomorrow, which will have me, and I will be fully. But I'm caught up. I watched the last of yesterday's this morning when I got up because I wanted. I was at the. I was at the Shooter Kiyomiya match, and I was
Okay.
into that. I was like, "Let's go!"
Yeah, I've been
boy.
wanting to like catch up on stuff. It's just, and then I mean, it threw things off. I haven't because ROH had a pay-per-view.
Yeah, but you
And so,
cover ROH, so you
yeah,
had
and so that was the important thing. Like, I didn't even get to Rampage until last night after Collision, and then we went back and rewatched Blood and Guts, but then I forgot because I'm glad we watched live, but I forgot that they went over, so the DVR cut off before
I
the
got my
end.
favorite Blood and Guts here
And
for
so
everyone.
there
So
you
I
go.
was there last year. I made sure and wore it. Can't really see it, but whatever. There we go.
Yes.
Blood and Guts week. Woo! Blood and Guts. Yes, we did Rampage. We did Rampage yesterday. Took a break, had dinner, watched Collision.
Yeah, we watched Collision after so we watched Collision, Rampage, and then rewatched Blood and Guts, and then it cut off, and I was like, oh, that's right. Forgot that it went over. And you can't set the DVR up to our old, like when we had, I think it was Time Warner.
Oh, you guys don't have the extension?
You used to be able to set up for like 5 minutes after, but with DirecTV, they don't give you that option to set up like 15 minutes after or whatever.
Ours does.
And so, yeah, it won't get, for whatever reason, it does not give us that option.
I wonder, well, it's usually for sporting events. It does give me that. It's given me that option. That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, because Nikki and I were talking about
North Carolina DirecTV, like Michigan.
Nikki and I were talking. Yeah, Nikki and I were talking about it the other day, and she was saying that it hasn't given us that option unless it's maybe there's some weird way to get to it instead of like the usual extend 15 minutes.
Well, usually what happens is if it's a sporting event or something in that vein, it says,
do they consider that a sporting event? I mean, they should, but
it is. Tony put it in the ratings specifically under sports. So
okay. We'll have to look around and play with it and see. But I mean, we watched it live, but I was just trying to
they should be on top of this stuff.
I was trying to go back and like rewatch the ending because, obviously there was some question about because the cameras weren't in the right place, and which we'll get to. But yeah, so that's why I was like, well, let's rewatch it and see what we can see. And then it like cut off with like a few minutes to go, and we were like, oh yeah. Like we rewatch, not that I minded rewatch. I was like, we watched this whole entire match and it cuts off again. I was like, well, at least we saw it live the first time.
Blood and Gut for you guys. No S on it.
No
just
S.
Blood and Gut. We only got to watch, but that's okay. There's plenty of other wrestling. It's man, oh man.
Yeah. Brad's given us the schedule over here that he said we have some time to catch up since the next show after today isn't till Tuesday.
Yep.
Then shows Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then off again Sunday. Yeah,
that's just very convenient.
Yeah, I was hoping that we'd at least finish. I was hoping we would at least get through episode 3, and then I just did not have time between all the ROH stuff and everything else.
I mean, ROH was a big deal this week.
Yeah.
I'm glad, and we're going to talk about it, obviously, but it was a big...
yeah, lots to say.
There was a lot of ROH to deal with without having G1 going on and all these things. It's all about what you're like, what in your case, like you're actually doing a shoot, like you are actually covering it.
Right.
So you have to pay attention.
Yep.
And then it's also about like picking and choosing. I think like it's like a smorgasbord, really. You have to like, I mean, just for me, it's about like I want to be caught up on the G1, and
Me
especially
too.
now that it feels like the G1 again.
Mhm.
I'm oh my gosh, Kevin Kelly sang Chris Charlton's song. Just
Oh my gosh.
that because he's by himself when he's not in the Tokyo.
Right. I saw him talking about the other day about how he wanted the wrestlers to focus on the tournament, not being on the show with
And
him. And
I
so,
love that. I
yeah.
actually it's been what it is if he talks about it on the thingy is that it's been ridiculously like unusually hot. Obviously, I mean it's happening everywhere.
Mhm.
So they're
Right.
having the same problems where it's been so hot and so terrible that he doesn't want the wrestlers not getting treatment and not getting their time that they need and not like I mean he's like cooling their core temp. I mean it's really really like you could tell that this guy is obviously like a sports background and he's also like
Yeah.
been I know he's like a youth sports coach. I think he's another baseball guy. But like
Right.
it's a really cool reason why. So if you're somebody that's like a devotee, you're like, I can't think of and I think Jeremy said it or Steven too. I can't think of a better person to do the G1 by himself and be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
He's
he's
always.
hilarious now because he'll make jokes and he'll do little
Mhm.
he'll do Gino impressions and Chris impressions
Yeah. I
and
saw somebody ask him to bring they were like, bring back the onion.
uh, he's playing with it. I give the guy a ton of credit. Like Kevin Kelly always amazes me. He's somebody that I like, if I was gonna like in my like pay attention to that broadcaster
Right.
guy, like his mentality is so great. And he's like okay, new challenge. I'm gonna play with this and just be funny. And then today when I was finishing up, it was
Mhm.
what would have been Friday's show, I think, or Saturday's show.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was yesterday's show. And he actually in that show, he actually does the Just Five Guys stuff. And I'm
Fantastic.
like, I love you so much. You like keep challenging yourself because I want to keep looking up to you.
Right. Right.
You're awesome.
Yeah, he's great. I saw that Chris is back because I saw a picture that he shared, and it's somebody took it from the crowd, and it's him and Kevin Kelly, and you could just the look on Kevin Kelly's face, and Charlton said he was like he put like the L and put so left, and he was like Kevin Kelly when I'm back on my bullshit, and then he said right me I'm back or when I'm back on my bullshit. I was like, oh, they're so perfect together. I love them so much. As much as, and I do, and I love Ian and Caprice a lot. Those are probably my two favorite two-person booths. They're fantastic, and
Yeah.
Ian and Caprice were great on Friday,
I
which
think
I'll
it's
get to
kind of
when we
cool
get
that
to Death
Kevin
Before
Kelly
Dishonor.
and Chris Charlton and Ian Riccaboni and Caprice have that sort of like because they are what they are and they are that to each other. They have that sort of camaraderie where they do the back and forth funny stuff and they'll totally. I mean, what I love about those guys, they are like not some sort of like too proud to retweet a
Yeah, they
rando
don't
who's
take
talking
themselves
about
super
how much fun they
seriously.
are and then like
Yeah.
literally Jim Valley was like shouting him out for his commentary and all
I
the stuff.
saw.
And they
Yeah.
had like a whole like it was like a love fest where they're like, no, you're the best. No, you're the best. And I'm like, no, you're both the best. Shut
Right.
up. Gross.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what wrestling Twitter needs. More of this.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Give more people their flowers instead of being haters. But yeah. But before we get to all the wrestling, we got a couple of, I guess, housekeeping things we're going to get to. So, if you've been following along in the month of July, if you're on the Fight Game Media Twitter, you've probably seen it or in the Discord. They are doing one free episode of a show every single week on the Patreon page. You don't have to be a subscriber to get the free episode. It's basically a little preview so that if you've been on the fence about subscribing and supporting the content creators over there, then you can kind of check everybody out. And because obviously on the YouTube, you get clips, which are great, like little glimpses into what they do. But if you want to hear a full show, then these free episodes are really great ways to do that. and you can check it out. Mel has it up here on the screen. If you're listening to this, then it is the patreon.com slash fight game media, and it's just $5 a month, or you can do like Mel and subscribe all at once and subscribe for the year and get I think they give you a little bit of a discount if you do that. So definitely
I'm a frugal girl, so I like the yearly.
Awesome. Daza said he subscribed today.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yay.
Pop it up and James get to eat.
We love that. We love
I'm joking. We would never let them starve. We would never do that.
But
we
definitely
thank you, Daza. We appreciate that. You're one of our, I think I speak for a lot of people here at the network when we really appreciate your support.
We do.
You're good people.
And if you subscribe to Patreon, you can check out they've got a new series called Getting to Know, where they interview a different host. There's been 3 episodes so far. The first episode was Scott E Wrestling. If you watch, Scott covers everything you need to know about women's wrestling in Japan. That's your guy.
5-star Joshi show, ladies and gentlemen, and he has that on lockdown. He talks to the ladies all the time. He's killing it with so much. He will convince you to like that.
Yeah, he's killing it. He puts out so much great content, and you can tell that he genuinely loves it and loves talking about it. And so there's an episode with him. The second episode is Mike Gilbert, formerly of Brace for Impact, but now of the Mike and JD show, which is a really great episode as well. And both of those they're on the Patreon, but they're also on the YouTube as well. And then the third episode was me.
Oh, wait, I got to point this way. So that it's this way. So it's Sam, and I'm not caught up, so I haven't heard it yet. So.
Yes.
I heard good things about it. Everyone was very excited.
Oh, good.
I had to laugh because, because in the Discord, it's like when they put the mic one out, he's like, it's me talking about my favorite subject, me, which, you got to laugh at because Mike's Mike. And so you got to see that one for those kinds of things. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, crap, it's the Sam one now. And now I have to watch it. I'm like,
When you have time, I know there's a lot going on right now with G1. So
as of right now, my podcast. See, I sacrificed my listening is what I sacrificed this week. I haven't listened to The Boom. I haven't listened to The Dynamite Show. I haven't listened to you. And I haven't listened to Mike and JD this week. I am almost caught up on Observer Radio. I did finish Garrett. And I listened to the controversial Observer Radio because I wanted to hear what they had to say about the ladies match, the Brit match, and everything. And so, I
have not heard what they've had to say, but I can only imagine because
I heard. See, what happened was someone in the Discord, because we have an Observer Radio channel, said, hey, I'm not sure how I feel about how they talked about that, but it's a lot of gentlemen and it's fine, but there are less ladies in our Discord than there are gentlemen. And they were talking about it a little bit. And so I was like, I need to hear it myself in context. And so I did that was one I wanted to get to, but I'm trying, I listened in order because I want to make sure that I'm getting all the information.
That makes perfect sense.
So I sacrificed my audio this week for my G1.
Hey, that's completely understandable. There's a lot going on with G1, and you can easily get behind, as you can see with me. But yeah, so as of right now, my episode is only on the Patreon. It will go up on YouTube at some point. I'm not sure exactly when that will go up. But thank you. Brad says that he loved my episode. Daza said, your episode was great. Reason I subbed was to watch it early. Oh, thank you. And it says Mike and JD did a good show on the invasion angle too. Brad said that he loved the invasion episode with Mike and JD and that their stuff is fantastic. Yeah, those two really have something special.
Deep dive stuff they're doing lately.
I need to get caught up on what they're doing.
Don and Kenny, which was awesome. They did it.
I've got to get.
They did a Black Scorpion episode, which we downloaded and listened to on the way from Toronto home.
Oh, cool.
And it was so good. At like Bob was into it. They ended up shouting out Bob on the next week's episode. It was so
Very
nice.
cool. Very cool.
But those deep dive was really cool because JD being a writer already, and
Right.
they go through and they take some of his articles that he's written, and then they like really deep dive them. And it's those two. Part of it is that they have that rapport that they have.
Right.
They really are great together.
They are. They're so good together. And Mike talks about a little bit about that on his getting to know episode about how like
I'm excited. I want to get caught
and he
up.
just talks about how like he likes to try to like because JD's so serious, and so he'll save stuff to tell him to pop him on camera basically, because he'll say things that he knows is gonna make him laugh, and so he'll wait and he like won't tell him beforehand so he can get like a live reaction basically, which makes so much sense with them. And so, but those are really great episodes. I really enjoyed those. And so definitely if you're on the Patreon and if you're subscribed to the YouTube, then you can see the first 2 episodes. They are now up on YouTube, but you get first access if you listen on Patreon like Daza did.
Right, exactly. See, that made all of you just helped make our point for us, which is that you get all the like best stuff before everybody else.
You do.
And you get it in full. Sometimes you don't get it in full on the YouTube. I mean, these will be, but some of the other stuff isn't. So, you get all those.
There's some good stuff over there on the Patreon, and you can definitely help them out. And then, there's also a way to help us out besides, subscribing and liking and sharing is also there's something called a super chat. And so you can give us money. You can
give us money.
You can give us money and we'll read your comments. And as Mel and I have a policy that no one has ever taken us up on.
Yep.
But if you pay us $25, we'll read something maybe a little on the mean side, kind of like the mean tweets type of thing. However, we reserve the right to not read it if it's racist, sexist, homophobic, anything like that. If we deem it inappropriate, we won't read it and we keep your money. So, that's our rule. I don't know why nobody has taken us up on that, but that's our rule.
That's our rule for mean comments. That's it.
But if you don't have a mean comment and would still like to, we will take $1 or whatever you would like to give us. So super chats are an option, just so that you guys know we've never used them before. So I frequently forget that that's even an option. And then I know Scott on his big live show that he did last week that he was on for like 3 hours, just about. He was on for a long time.
I know, you got so many good questions.
And he made a nice little chunk of money with his super chat. So good for him. And as he should, because he works hard and he does a lot. So good for him.
And it's it's stuff that goes back into like for in the case of like us is like we were able to have an artist help us and get like really do our logo for us and actually utilize that.
Our logo so much. We still have the best logo on this network.
Absolutely, without question. I don't think it's close. But I mean, it's stuff like that. And so, I mean, that's the reason that we obviously that kind of thing. It just helps. And it helps the YouTube thing.
It does help the YouTube.
And definitely, subscribe to the YouTube.
Yeah,
tell your friends more to subscribe. Anything. Use your alt to subscribe. You don't have to watch on there or do anything.
And I know but liking the video pushes us up in the algorithm. So that definitely helps. Even if you don't like it, like, because some people can't do it, like if they're watching from a certain device, they have to go back and do it. But even later, it helps us because it moves us up during the week too. So that is super helpful. I do want to see. So Brad said, I am behind on G1, but I did see this. And Nikki, if you go to my Twitter, you'll see it too. He said, oh my God, I'm watching the G1 in the background and Naito's entrance says must see from today's show. I saw a video of it and I was like, listen, I'm behind, but I'm going to retweet this anyway because this is great. And he's facing Yano. So it makes sense that he did what he did.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited because the most recent Yano, it was Yano and Zach.
I've seen the Yano. Who was Yano's first match?
No, it wasn't Yano and Zach. Yeah, it was. It was Yano and Zach.
And was that his first match?
I think so.
Was it? I should go back. I have a Twitter thread going of the match, and I just keep adding to it.
I feel like, or maybe did I miss a Yano match? What? No, who was it that he tied up his feet? and he was like hopping towards the ring. It was definitely Zach.
I've only seen one Yano match so far in the G1.
Okay, which one was it?
I'm trying.
Oh, okay. So we're both having the same issue because too much wrestling.
Yeah, I was like, I can go look through because we're super professional. I can go find my tweets.
Yeah, because Zach was the. I don't know if it was the first one, but the Zach one was freaking awesome because of what they did with all kinds of stuff, and there was, of course, tape involved. But he brought. I don't want to overly wreck it. I'll just say that he brought friends, and he had a
okay. I have not seen that one.
He had a strategy and a friend. Zach did. Zach came out there ready to go with a strategy.
Yeah, apparently did not tweet about whoever. I didn't apparently tweet. I've not been tweeting about every match just because we're behind. I've been just tweeting about things. I did see. So I have seen Zach versus Tana, but not Yano versus Zach. I have not gotten to that yet.
Zach versus Tana was pretty good. I've seen that one a few times now, and I got to see it live. So it was
nice.
Because that was one of the Madison Square Garden. That was him, and he was terrorizing Tana back then. So in his Zach fashion.
Oh no, the one that I saw with Yano, that's the one because I do have a quote where I said there's a headless man under the ring because Kevin Kelly said it. That's when he had the mascot with him and they were up under. It was Goto, right?
That's it. You're right.
That's right. It was Goto.
There it is.
Went under the ring and Goto came back with the mascot head on, and that's why Kevin Kelly said there's a headless man under the ring.
It's okay. You're right. Yep. Now I remember. I remember saying like for both Yano matches, I was like, Dave Meltzer is gonna hate these matches.
Yano matches are the best. I don't care what anybody says. I love them. I never tire of them. I know that Steven hates it, but as well. But
I get it.
I get where he's coming from because he watched it for so long. But God, I love Yano matches.
For me, it's so like I hate the Bullet Club shenanigans way worse than I hate the like the Yano shenanigans.
That's what Bullet Club always. I'm behind. That's what Bullet Club has always done. They are very. I didn't obviously watch the original. I was not watching then, but from what I've heard, it sounds like they're very much taking Bullet Club back to their roots and how they used to be.
It looks this year feels like, I mean, what they've been doing right now is very like my first G1 where I just hated them, but also like my payoff was Red Shoes double birded them. So
good, as he should.
Oh man, that was so much fun. That was one of like the one thing about the G1 is like you never know, and it's starting to heat up, and the points are starting to kind of fall into place, and there's little storylines starting to emerge about people having like this many draws and this many that and whatever.
Yeah,
and
we haven't gotten to this. Like I've seen like the one draw,
getting to the part where it starts to get like where you're like, ooh, what's gonna happen? Something's gonna happen.
Yeah, I had even thought about like asking, like, should I just because I saw I think maybe it's John LaRocca has been tweeting like his 3 favorite matches from the G1 each night, and I was like, I don't know if I should just like skip ahead to, but then I like things that I like based on a lot of his tweets just in general. I like a lot of things he doesn't like, which is totally fine. There's nothing he watches wrestling through a different lens than I do, and he watches, which is completely fine. So then I'm like, but if I go by his list, then I may end up missing something that I like because we don't like the same things. Or he doesn't tend to like the things that I like. So it's like that might not be a good barometer. I might have to ask somebody who likes similar G1 like you or
like
Brad.
Me or
yeah, okay, so maybe I need to see Brad's list. Brad said he's been keeping a running list of his favorite matches each day. Maybe
that's what I've kind of, I mean, in my head a little bit, I've written them down. I have a little like write down of, I mean, I do have I could give you not obviously online here, but I have a couple that I could give you, like the ones
I may have to do that just to get caught up.
Because I've been writing down the ones stuff, when we were going to talk about it. I knew that I had no idea where you would be with it, and I knew you had a lot of other stuff going on.
I had hoped to be a little bit further, but that just didn't work out that way.
Right now, you have to actually like. unfortunately, or fortunately, probably better, like, you can't be at wrestling 24/7, like, you can't be at
Yeah.
it all the
Yeah.
time. You have to,
Right.
like, take breaks, you have to have life, like, life is happening actively
Right.
to people,
Exactly.
whether you like it or not. I mean, there's been
Yeah.
days where I wanted to get caught up and too damn bad because
Yeah.
life,
Exactly. Same here.
and that's it.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, we're in a time where we're like so like there's just so jam packed full of wrestling that it's like you get what you can get. But
Yeah.
that was part of why
I mean, it's a good
my
problem to
friend and
have
I
for sure.
actually sort of went through and we were like, well, listen, unless it's a really important evil match, I'm probably not gonna like watch it that hard.
Are there any important evil matches though?
I think there was one, and I even
Okay.
wrote it down, but I mean, it's
Okay.
like,
Well,
so
then
the
I guess
evil
I'll watch
matches,
that.
I'm not paying that hard of
Yes.
attention to, that kind of thing. So it's
Sure.
that's
Yeah, there's some stuff that I've been like on my phone for or going and doing like other
or I'll
things
just leave
and
it
then
on in the back or
yeah,
whatever.
that's
And
how we yeah. And then sometimes
but
it's like
then I
Miley
wrote
wants to
down, I
go
mean, I
out like
have a
Miley
good list for, like, I probably have a decent
I'll
list for you if you
okay.
like, because I've been writing down the
I'll
ones I really like the ones
okay.
that I would feel were
That would
unmissable if
be really
someone were at.
helpful.
So I will definitely get that out there.
I'll probably just do that. I will say two big takeaways that I've had. One,
Go.
they finally added Bad Dude Tito's name to the TMDK intro. I have been
I
talking
saw you and
about
Nikki
this
tweeting
for
about it, so I
she
went and
did.
checked.
And it was funny because Mikey Nichols wrestled first and his intro looked a little different. And so Shane Haste's match was next. And so I looked up and I saw Shane was wearing the orange hat that he wore at the press conference. And then I looked back down at whatever I was doing and Nikki was like, she was like, they added Dutito's name. And I was like, what? And I looked up and there it was. And I mean, obviously Fujita's name got added too, which good for him. But I was like, finally, I was like, Bad Dude Tito has been in TMDK before Zach. Why is his name not on here? You just had him wrestle at the Independence Day shows. Acknowledge
Awesome.
him and put him on here.
It was legit because you two were talking about it on Twitter. I saw you two talking about it. That I like went back and was like watching. And
Yeah.
actually, no, I didn't go back because Mikey Nichols was coming up, and I knew he was. So I was like, "Oh, okay, I got to make sure I watch."
Yes. I was like, finally. Like, this man is in the group. Like, he's been Jonah put him in there before he even went back to WWE.
I know, it's amazing.
He
Jonah
was in
left.
it before
Actually, Jonah
Zach.
left us with the better, I mean, side of that, because Jonah didn't want to be there, and he left us with Big T.
I mean, good for Jonah. Go get paid.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Go get
Get the
paid.
bag. Grab the
However,
bag, man.
you beat Okada. WWE not going to let you beat Roman probably, but you know, go get paid.
And then grab that bag.
My other huge highlight was Yoshihashi doing the Destroyer on Will Ospreay.
That was a great Destroyer.
It was great. I have watched that clip so because Lyric actually, I was looking for the clip the next day so I could tweet it. And Lyric had actually, she clipped it and it was the Japanese commentary, which was phenomenal because it was great because in stereo they yell Canadian Destroyer and it was just perfect. And I have watched like just that section of the clip I have watched like 10 times because it just everything about it's perfect. Like I didn't know Yoshihashi had probably one of the best Canadian Destroyers.
I know, right? Who knew?
Did not know thing. And then Osprey's sell of it was perfect. Like it looked, and then there was the Spanish Fly a little bit later in that sequence that was really great too. And you can hear the Japanese commentary yell Spanish Fly, and it was just that's probably gonna be like the big Yoshihashi highlight that like I always would be like, remember G1 33 where Yoshihashi put a Canadian destroyer on William Ospreay. And it was funny because we were getting ready for bed. And so like we just let the match play and like we were watching and then I had gone to the kitchen and I was like putting stuff up and Nikki was like, wait, get in here. She was like, Yoshihashi did a destroyer because she didn't see it, but she heard Kevin Kelly say it. And so she paused it and we went back and we rewound it and we were like, oh my God. And I was like, I cannot believe that just happened. I was like, that might be the moment of the G1 for me.
That's awesome. It was so good.
Yeah, so I don't know if Yoshihashi is just gonna pull it out at special moments now, or if this is gonna be something he does more often. But I was very impressed with it.
That was good. It was good stuff. It was fun to see you guys all happy about it. I
We
loved
were.
I'm like,
We were. I was like,
it's
I'm way behind on the G1. However, I'm
well,
very happy about those things.
it's your favorite thing.
It is my favorite thing.
And it was done perfectly. It's like the best thing. It's like
What
it's
if?
like my favorite thing done perfectly.
Yes,
In one
exactly.
of my favorite tournaments of the year.
Right, exactly. And it was from somebody completely unexpected. Like I never would have expected.
He's had an
Yoshi.
unexpected tournament.
Yeah, which good for him.
I know.
I'm good for him. I'm happy for him.
I'm liking what they're doing with the. Again, I do not to blow it up too much. It's like
Sure.
I'm liking what they are doing with playing with the storylines with them. There's new people in the G1 like that have never done it before ever.
Right.
And they are using that. And I love it. And I love how there's a natural and a very organic thing that's forming inside of the tournament that Gato is, as he does, leaning into, and it's wonderful. Yeah. And I'm so excited. Like, I'm so excited to be a New Japan fan, watching like these kids come up and seeing what the veterans are doing, and it's amazing. I'm so happy. Cool. I feel like it's back, baby. Like it's back to being
good.
That.
Yeah, when New Japan is firing on all cylinders, nobody can touch them.
I mean, I don't get mad about having to get up and watch their wrestling shows like for like 8 weeks or whatever. I even had that moment where I was like, oh no, what about the day after the final? And I was like, stop thinking about that. It's weeks off. You don't have to worry about it.
Enjoy what you got.
I'm like, what are you doing? Don't
Nikki corrected me. She did see the Canadian Destroyer, but it didn't register that that's what he did. And then she heard Kevin Kelly say it, and then her brain caught up.
Good.
Well, it is unexpected to have Yoshihashi do that. So no wonder your brain can catch up.
Perfect because of that. Yeah.
Yes. Brad said, I love that the new entrants have trouble. They might be veterans in the ring, but doing the G1 is a different beast. So talent that have done it are doing well, and while debuts are having issues. Well, you know, that I like that they're playing into that.
They are.
The G1, we talk about all the time that it is grueling and it is difficult, and we are already concerned because, you know, we talked about Ospreay in the beginning because obviously he's done it many times, but he's coming off of a serious shoulder injury. And we talked about, like, is this smart for him to go through this such a grueling thing for, you know, 3 or 4 weeks, and like how is his shoulder going to hold up? And people get injured in the G1. That's happened where they've gotten injured and have had to forfeit the rest of the tournament because they've gotten injured during the G1, because it's just that grueling on their bodies. It is a lot, and there's travel, and now they're having to add all this heat onto it too.
Yeah, the heat thing is crazy. Yeah. It sounds like that is definitely an outlier, an unexpected outlier that is creating additional. I mean, it's hard to stay hydrated in that kind of weather.
And it is. It is hard.
You live down south, so you know, like humidity.
It's been insane here. Yeah, it's been in the mid 90s a lot lately, and it's
just wet, and you're like damp all the time, so you can't like.
Oh gosh, it's
I see. As someone who's originally from the Northeast Coast, it's like it gets cool at night. Like, you know, even if it's the worst humidity in the world, it cools off at night. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm living in the Midwest. It does not cool off at night here. I'm like, what the heck is happening? It's like, the South and the Midwest. Yeah.
It's getting a lot more similar.
Although I wouldn't want to be in the I'd rather be here than be in the desert, because forget that.
It's terrible. Brad said they do that every year, so when they have special talent that does well, it's a huge deal. Simple storytelling. Yeah, imagine that.
Whoa.
imagine that.
Basics, fundamentals.
Is there anything else you want to add about the G1?
No, I think we kind of went backwards, but that's okay.
Yeah, we did kind of go backwards, but we were already in it and talking about it, especially, and then Brad's watching it, so we'll just get to the G1.
Well, now it's out of the way because we have bigger things. We have big fish to fry.
Actually, this little segue will work because speaking of New Japan,
speaking of
New Japan, speaking of strong style, we had Brad's getting into good stuff. Shingo versus Ishii. Man, Shingo versus Eddie Kingston was everything I wanted it to be.
Oh, it was wonderful.
That's exactly what I wanted, and I got it, and they delivered, and it was
Shingo
phenomenal.
is money, man. He is.
God, I love that guy.
Ishii too. I mean, Ishii is they call him Mr. G1 the tournament guy. He always puts but damn.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my favorite matches had Naito in it, ironically, which I'm not that I don't like Naito, but I'm like his matches, like I'm not as over for him as I am for a lot of the other people, and as a lot of people are for him. So he's just not as much like, I mean, I like him, but he's not.
I understand.
But he's on one of my favorite. He had a great match, so with Jeff Cobb there.
We love Naito in this house, so he's one of Nikki's favorites. So I'm very much looking forward to
the Naito Jeff Cobb match. Was excellent. And John LaRocca's wife Katrina got a shout out for cutting Jeff's hair.
Nice.
So it was adorable.
I saw that Jeff Cobb posted a picture yesterday in the salon because he was getting his hair, his highlights redone, and he was like, "Well, Tana always shows his stupid salon photos, so I'm posting mine."
It cracked me up. I wouldn't have known, but Garrett mentioned it on the Observer Radio I was listening to, that Katrina had cut Jeff's hair because he had stopped by to Uncle Jeff.
Right,
yeah,
because I saw the pictures that
and
John
she's
a
Cuts by Katrina. She's a salon. She's a stylist.
Oh, nice.
So it was hilarious because apparently Kevin Kelly asked him about his hair, and he told he said, Cuts by Katrina, and asked it. And so Chris Charlton was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "What?" He asked that I give his stylist a shout out. I was like, this is so meta and it's so wonderful and I love it so much.
I love it.
It was so perfect. And of course, it's Jeff Cobb, who I already love. So again, it was another one of those G1 moments.
We do love some Jeff Cobb in this house, so that's gonna be a good one for us. And Grace said I love those too. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Good stuff.
But yes, so
anyway, yes.
The transitioning from G1 with a former New Japan star. We finally got the debut of Kota Ibushi in AEW. It finally happened. We got to see it with our own eyes. Kota, people were, as he should have, but people were laughing because Kenny is being beat up or being plastered to a bed of screwdrivers, not a bed of nails. Turns out it was screwdrivers. And Kota does his full entrance. He stands there, takes in. That pop was so loud for him, which
I'm glad.
Me too. And I know why they did it because they're probably trying to sell a few more tickets. But I would have not officially announced him. I would not have done the video package. I would have just saved it for that moment and just not that the crowd was loud because they were very loud for him. Like you could, it definitely came through. But I would have just saved it and let people do. People knew it was going to be Kota. Let them continue to think it without saying it, and then give it to them.
And then have them show up.
That's what I wanted.
They wanted to make sure that they moved some seats.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's exactly what that was. But it was still worth it.
It works.
Kota looked great. It was so good to see him and Kenny have their similar Golden Lovers attire on, and then the Hung Bucks had their matching attire, which had purple in it, which I thought was very interesting. That they had though, because that Dark Order's colors are purple.
Oh, that's right, the Dark
and
Order
they had the
thing.
white. And then somebody posted, the Evil Uno was not happy about that. He tweeted that he was like, they're wearing our fucking colors. Yes, that's definitely gonna.
Well, don't piss off Evil Uno, folks.
Yeah, because Evil Uno. Well, we'll get to when I cover ROH stuff. They had a Dark Order had a match at on Death Before Dishonor, and they are definitely going back to old Dark Order, original Dark Order before everybody had sympathy for them. Dark Order. They are definitely going back to who they used to be, which I think is the smart thing to do.
Probably,
with
yeah.
Dark Order. They're kind of lost and getting, and so I'm interested to see. And now that this is kind of over with the BCC and the Golden Elite for now, seems like Dark Order is about to move into that role. And And so Brad, yeah, Brad said Kota was good, but he looked a little rough out there, understandably still hurt from earlier in the year and a lot of ring rust. And I don't think he's ever done that type of match before. But I think for what Kota needed to do, and I think, and yes, he should, you do want him to look great, but Kota, I don't think most people cared. They just were happy to see Kota. Like, I don't think they were worried about.
Someone said along the way where I was catching up, essentially was like, it couldn't last for, like, he couldn't look like a 20-year-old boy for like a handsome 20-year-old lad forever. Like, sooner or later, life and doing what he does to himself as a wrestler, because he's not like easy on himself. I mean,
no,
it was cute. Like, everyone was like, oh, they brought these banned things back. It's like, yeah, because Kota Ibushi's kind of crazy. And I think people forget, because this little cute face, what a like madman he is in the ring, and how him and Naito try to kill each other every time they wrestle.
Oh my god. And Kota
like,
used to
it's just so when I heard he was doing blood and guts, I was when I heard he was doing blood and guts, I was like, yeah, I would bring back my list of banned things for this guy too. This is a guy who does moonsaults off balconies in like.
And it's funny because they actually only banned like a couple of things, and everything else just needs permission. So
it was exactly. And it was really, frankly, actually, it was good, because being at Blood and Guts last year, like, what, 3 people got seriously injured.
Yeah, and we'll get to some of that comments for some other. We'll get to that part too. But and it's, I mean, the one thing that should have been banned from day one is unprotected chair shots. I'm like, why are you waiting
that
this
should
far?
Always, I mean,
that should. Yeah, I was like,
it's not 1970.
CTE is a real thing. You're a co-owner of a football team, like you, like you know the serious. We're only 20 years removed from the Chris Benoit stuff. Like, dude, just stop it. And I can't. That's one of my biggest complaints about GCW is I hate.
There's no reason for it anymore.
And and that's any company. If any company is doing unprotected chair shots, you need to stop. CTE is a real thing. Like, stop.
That's from a lot. Like, that's like a fossil move now. It's dinosaur. That's like, you know what I mean? That's wrestling history. It's not even. I mean, there was a time in wrestling when doing that kind of thing at all was considered garbage wrestling. So, I mean, go back a little further, but I mean, it's not 75 anymore. It's not. It's 2023 and 3/4. Like, we need to not be like smashing people with chairs unprotected. There's no. I can't see a good reason to incorporate that into a match. No, I can't either. There's so much other stuff that you can do these days, and that they do look. They had glass, and I mean, every Office Depot in the area is like sold out of thumbtacks in the Boston metro area after that match. So, like, I mean, there's plenty of other stuff.
Yeah. Brad did point out that Yuta and Claudio had matching tights, which I thought was interesting too. I was like, oh, that's a kind of a, but Yuta has, well, we'll talk about Yuta. And so it seems like Yuta has gravitated a little bit more towards Claudio. Like, I don't know if it's because Danielson has made him hike a bunch of times, and he's kind of gotten his stuff from Mox, and Mox is busy with Shooter.
Right.
Stuff like that. It seems like Yuta has gravitated a little bit more towards Claudio lately, maybe because Claudio's not as hard on him. I mean, he is hard on him, but like he's not as mean. So maybe that's why. And then Nikki said Kota out here throwing himself into tax because he felt left out. Yeah, after the match, there is a clip of Kota throwing himself.
That's what I'm saying. Glass. The guys, like, people forget because he's so handsome and young looking. They forget, like, watch this guy do chops. Like, watch him do kicks and shin shots and moonsault off of balconies in old halls. I mean, the dude is nuts. He's a little crazy, and he's had.
But that's why we love him.
He's had
and that's why. And
this man years. So I think that's just caught up with him now.
Yeah. And he's got, and like one of my editors pointed out, at least because Kota thinks he has 25 hours in a day. So he has an extra hour every day to heal up.
He runs on Kota time.
He runs on Kota time. He has time to heal up. So yeah, I don't know what Kota, and that's the thing. Like, it's not, Kota did not get an All Elite graphic, which I didn't expect him to. I don't think he wants either. He doesn't want to be tied down to a contract.
Not really a contract.
He's probably on a per appearance a per appearance basis. I don't expect to see him again. I think he'll probably be at All In. I would assume he would be for something. Maybe we get a Golden Lovers reunion there. Maybe Kota wants a dream match with somebody. Who knows? I think they'll fight because Kota has a big following, obviously, anywhere he goes. I'm sure Wembley fans would love to see Kota Ibushi.
Oh, I know they would,
especially because Kota's not wrestling as much as he had been before. He's still coming off those shoulder issues. He wrestled at over at the Collective. He wrestled a couple matches and then he kind of took some time off for a little bit, and so I think he's just kind of figuring it. He pretty much is just doing whatever Kota wants to do.
That's honestly more like what he was doing before everything went crazy and sideways at New Japan. He was never like on contract with them full, like he was on short-term contracts if he was on a contract at all. He always took other bookings that he wanted. He took lots of time off. It was one of the things that was like, sometimes like people would, he got the diva label a lot because he was like, my body's not ready right now, so I'm not going to take that date. And it's like, meh. I mean,
Kota,
run your career the way you want to run it.
Kota's a free spirit, and he just does what he does. And
I just don't see that guy being like, especially now more than ever. I think he would be less likely than
that's been
ever.
One of the things is he doesn't want to live in the United States. He's never wanted to. He doesn't. He will come and he'll come and stay here for a little bit and do what he needs to do. And then, this is also a man who got lost he got lost in one of the cities in Japan that he was working in. Like he left his phone in the hotel room, and then he couldn't remember which hotel he was at. So he walked around the city all night long until he eventually figured it out the next morning. Or I think Kenny felt like this man always has to have somebody with him. Like he's a wrestling genius, but sometimes he's just his own which I think is what so many people love about Kota. Kota is just himself. He's one of the most authentic people you can find. Like when you talk about wanting people to be authentic, like I think Kota is it. Kota is just
the most
himself.
Carniest of wrestling, light, free spirit, like he's his own beast.
He is his own beast. He's the best. I'm glad we got him for Blood and Guts. I will take him in AEW however he wants to do it. He doesn't have to be there full time. I will always tune in for Kota wherever he is at. If I have access to seeing Kota, I will watch it. And that's kind of, I think that's why some of the GCW stuff fits for him, because he can just go out and be as crazy as he wants to be, and then he can go home for a while and then come back whenever he feels like it. So
I like it.
So what did you think about the Blood and Guts match overall?
It was all right. It was good. I didn't feel like it was a little bit I thought it was consistent with last year. Like it was a lot of fun. I felt like they kind of wrapped up some stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, it was a good show. Like it wasn't all the way around. I thought it was a good show. It was not as exciting as being there live 3 days after Forbidden Door last year, but stop being a selfish jerk. Like, so, I thought
that crowd was super into it, chanting "We want fire." I was like, Lord,
they're like Boston. I mean, and
they're like, listen, Kota's coming. He might give us fire. If anybody's going to give us fire, it would be Kota.
I can confidently say this as someone from that area of the world originally. That's a very, they of course they want people to set themselves on fire. It's Boston. They're crazy.
Yes.
My I love the chanting. I wish that they were chanting for something that where you could hear the accent, so it would have been funnier.
That would have been good. Yeah, and I just I wish the camera had been I don't know, there are some miscommunications I guess with camera cuts on certain things. They cut away too soon a lot of times. This is a match that needs a split screen because there's so much happening, and then of course they missed the really big thing at the end. They missed Jon Moxley surrendering for Wheeler Yuta,
right?
Which is a big, and that's kind of an issue. I mean,
they did it a few times. There were times when they would cut away at I was like, who is doing the freaking camera work here? These people don't have any clue what they're doing.
I was like, is Kevin Dunn over here trying to sabotage them? What is happening?
It was bad. It was
Yeah,
they
and that's
got
been
a crew
happening.
that had no idea how to shoot a wrestling match.
A lot of time, and it seems like a lot of times when they have these type of matches, even like when they're fighting like in the concession stands or that type of thing, or they're brawling throughout the like Anarchy in the Arena is another one that they had a lot of problems. They were cutting too soon, or they were showing the crowd too much, or just it was really. Yeah, Daza said they were cutting away mid move.
Yeah.
And like you could see a move starting and they would cut. Or there was a moment where Kenny and Kota were like looking at each other or were like doing something and then it cut away. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're missing.
Bob will back me up because I was flipping out about it a couple of times because I was actually really into the match and I was like, who is shooting this? What is wrong? We had quick story. So we went to there's a longer version of it, but the quick story is we went to Mamma Mia when we were in Las Vegas, and it was a Las Vegas version of the show, and that's whatever. Sure. But the guy that was working the spotlight had no idea what he was doing, and so he was like, the actress or actor would move, and this guy would do the thing like, and it was like he was like trying to follow them around, and that's what I was like. Who did they hire? The person who did Mamma Mia in Vegas? Like, I was so mad. I was just like, because they kept just like Brad's mid move. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and Brad said AEW production has been really bad.
It really
recently.
has.
They
Good
can't
shows, bad production.
Yeah, and it says they still can't mic backstage stuff well, and the camera cuts way too early. And I don't know if some of it too was just, I mean, because it was starting before they were in Canada, but I don't know if some of it was because of stuff in Canada, like if they weren't just sure, if they're not familiar. I don't know what it is.
Their audio people suck.
Yeah, they've got to.
They had no broadcast. I was watching Collision last night. And there was a point at which they just dropped the broadcast audio right off the freaking thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
well, and then and then it even goes back to the Impact had an issue Thursday night. Their biggest segment they had no audio for. Josh Alexander, because he returned at Slammiversary. Josh Alexander comes out to talk to the crowd. Alex Shelley comes out. Leo Rush comes out. So this is like probably a 15-minute segment with no audio whatsoever.
Wow.
And so they had to put it, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but they had to put the whole last segment on YouTube. So I was like, I don't know what is happening with audio and wrestling lately, but
there is like an audio and video like that. Well, actually, no, because it's really only AEW who's sucking with that right now. I wish they would get there. They need to do what New Japan does and get people that know how to film sports or wrestling to do it.
Yeah,
I can't keep picking up new people, but they don't.
If Strong isn't filming right now, then get some of their people to come in
and
have them do it, or at least teach some people, pay them to teach some people how to do stuff because they are struggling. And it for a company that's on TBS and TNT, they've been around for 4 years. Like, gotta get that stuff worked out because even Ring of Honor did not have any issues. I mean, maybe it's because it was a smaller venue or whatever, but I don't remember them having really any issues on Friday. And I watched it on Honor Club, this was the first time ever that a pay-per-view was live, because generally Honor Club's pay-per-views air 90 days after or 60 days after. And so this time you could watch it. There wasn't a discount for it. You paid the full $39.99 for it. But I was like, listen, at least with New Japan, when we have to pay to watch pay-per-views, they're like $28.
Yeah.
I was like, $40 is a lot on top of the $10 we're already paying. However, I will say it was a better experience than Bleacher Report because I had no issues whatsoever. I saw somebody make a comment that they are wondering if Tony ran that on purpose to see how much streaming Honor Club can handle, because Max is apparently Max is not in a place where they can do live streaming. And so that's part of the reason All In is supposedly going to be running on Bleacher Report, is because there's nowhere else that has the capability, but we know how Bleacher Report does. And some Bleacher Report is hit or miss a lot of the time.
The problem right now is that they are talking about making it a package deal
Yeah, I think that's
on
what's gonna happen.
Bleacher Report,
Yep.
where they're forcing you to buy both pay-per-views on Bleacher Report,
Yeah.
which I have zero interest in doing. I don't want to be forced to buy both pay-per-views.
I don't
And
think
I
you have to buy. I
definitely
think it will be an option.
and I
I will
definitely don't want to do it on Bleacher Report only. I have nothing but problems with Bleacher Report. It is the worst freaking platform in the world.
we've
Like, I'd
had
rather watch on my satellite if I can. Hopefully, I'll
yeah.
be able to, but it is not
It's really interesting
great.
because Bleacher Report will not play well in certain rooms in our house, but then it will play with no problems in another room. And so we've had to like figure and which is unacceptable for one
I've
thing.
had
But so
to
people are
I've had to
wondering if
stream it off my phone to my TV to get it to work
yeah,
right,
I
which
have
is I can't I can't interact with people online when I'm
yeah,
doing the thing. It's like
I think Doug has had to do that where he's had to cast from his phone
it's
to
freaking
watch it. And so
ridiculous.
but so some people are wondering if that's why he ran the pay-per-view on Honor
Mm-hmm.
Club to see
If it could
how many I
handle
don't
the
he didn't say
load.
how many buys there were, but like to see how many people watched at once, what the streaming was like, and probably also because it was still available on Vite and Bleacher Report. So probably trying to figure out, okay, who is still having problems
Yeah.
and can Honor Club run this with no problems
Can the
whatsoever
infrastructure
or less.
handle it?
So it sounds like, which is a smart thing to do if you've got the the infrastructure basically to run live shows. I mean, it's a completely different thing with ROH versus All In. That's going to be a ton more people, but if you can start kind of playing around with it now and seeing what needs to be tweaked, is this a possibility for the future? Then, or is this a possibility for people who don't want to buy both and they only want to watch All Out? Well, they can watch it through Honor Club. I mean that
Right, yeah.
it's smart to test it out because if Max is not going to be an option anytime soon for live streaming pay-per-views, then why not utilize what you've already got there?
Yeah, and from what I understand, from what I've heard from people, is that it really, I mean, they don't have the infrastructure. They've never done pay-per-views. They've never done mass streaming like at the same time where their network has had a bajillion people on it live for that kind of a thing. So it's not like you can just go do it on HBO Max. It's like they have to have the infrastructure to be able to
Or you're going to
have
have the same
hundreds
problems
of
that Bleacher
thousands
Report
of
is
people
having.
worldwide trying to log on to their network, and it'll be worse than Bleacher Report because at least Bleacher Report has done shows like that before, kinda.
Right. And so they have more, they're at an advantage over Max right now.
I mean, that right now is just, and that's even with, they're running MLS on HBO, but that's their test run, and the women's national team as well. But I mean, as a soccer player, like, it's pretty simple stuff. It's pretty easy to do a wide shot of a 100-yard field and
well, maybe they can shoot
of a pitch, and it's just, I mean, but they're in terms of like, and I don't think that they're getting the numbers of people watching live women's national soccer that they would get watching All In.
Exactly.
In this case, because of the number of people that would probably be interested in that. And from where?
Yes. Yeah.
Because they're logging on.
Because not everybody's going to have
over.
access to Max either.
Well, and that's the other thing, and that's the bigger issue. Most of the Europeans, like, Max is not a thing over there. They don't have access to it the way we do. If they do, it's not the same way as us because it's through the TV services, which are through the government TV service situation, or it's just unavailable entirely. Like, my friend in Ireland does not get Max. He doesn't get it. So they put that stuff on other streaming services. He has to watch it on something else. Or not at all.
Yeah. So. Right. And Brad said, of course they did, Brad. He said Death Before Dishonor was up on Honor Club for free the very next day and is still available. Well, save yourself. Listen, it's a very good pay-per-view. I highly recommend it. So if it's up for free, I mean, I guess you have to be an Honor Club subscriber, I would assume, to be able to watch it for free. But I mean, you can pay $10.
That's
you can pay
faster than even New Japan.
Yeah. So
that would actually kind of piss me off as a subscriber. At least as a
Yeah, a
New
little
Japan
bit.
subscriber, like, they have to pay.
Yeah, I didn't.
I mean,
was
I don't
not
like having to pay that extra, but it's usually a reasonable, like you said, it's usually a reasonable amount. Like the
Yeah,
Independence Day show,
I
they
can.
did do a package deal, which was a good deal, and you could
Yeah,
do one or the other.
right, right,
And I
and that's
and
what
I
because.
know what their streaming service is like, so I'm good. I feel good
Yeah,
about
so and
it.
that's what because we split it with a friend, and
Yeah.
but that's what we were talking about. He was like, because I was like, I mean, New Japan, they should do pay-per-views that you have to buy as a subscriber, but I was like, it's 25 or 28 bucks. I
Yeah,
was
it's
like,
not 40
well, if I'm
bucks
already subscribing every month, then give it to me at a discount
discount.
because yeah, and that's why he was like, I would have no problems paying $28 for
Well,
ROH
they used to
pay-per-view.
actually Honor Club used to do it that way
Yeah,
because the way that I had our friend was an Honor Club subscriber. That was how we got in on the pre-sale for the MSG show. And they did it exactly that way. It was better deal actually with ROH pay-per-views to subscribe to the network
yeah.
because they used to give you a really good deal on the pay-per-views as part of your subscription.
Right, and they
So
should, yeah, because Matthew used to be a subscriber, and I remember, like, and that's how we would watch it, because we'd just use his login, and we would split the cost of the pay-per-view. I mean, we still do that, but
people used to love Honor
different.
Club. They used to hold it up as one of the like
Yeah, I had
premier.
a friend the other day, she was like, "Oh, Honor Club is back?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's been back for months now." And she was like, "I had no idea." And so Brad said, "Yeah, for members it is free." And he said he wonders if it was a mistake since the ROH Twitter was saying to order the replay on Honor Club. Probably.
Probably.
Well, I don't know how fast they're gonna fix that, so you might want to take advantage of it while
Well,
you
if they're
can.
watching right now, you're in trouble. So get over there right now. I'm
Yes.
leaving. No, yeah, I'm kidding. Joking.
Um,
All right. Well, I
so
guess we should get to. I mean, we're talking about ROH,
we are
right?
talking about ROH, and there's something else it's gonna
Oh yeah,
include,
we have to talk about the
but it
Tony
does kind
Khan
of
thing.
fit into
Well,
this, so I guess we could save it and make it all, or well, I guess we just
nah,
talk about it
let's
now.
talk about it
Okay, so
because
we're
I
gonna talk
actually
about it.
have I think that you could have done the Royal Rampage as the women's blood and guts, and I think it would have been better.
Well, from what yes, it would have been better, and maybe we wouldn't have got a 5-minute women's main event on Rampage, which is also a problem. Especially, and that's why I had saw Friday night, I had seen somebody talking about how it was a 5-minute match. I was like, please don't take me down from my high that I have right now for the women getting a 20-minute main event and to tell me that there's a 5-minute main event. So it just goes on top. Just goes on top of everything else with the way AEW presents women, how ROH presents women, and then there is overlap between that because there have been weeks now where we're getting really short women's matches on ROH. We're getting less. Some weeks we will have 3 to 4. Some weeks we have 2, and some of those matches are 2 minutes, and some of them are 7 minutes, and some weeks they're 15. It's just kind of all over the place with ROH. So in the beginning, it was really the women's matches were handled a lot differently, and there were more of them. And I do think some of it is, they were in Canada. They're trying to figure out how to tape. They weren't pre-taping in Orlando anymore, so I think they're I don't want to make excuses for them, but I'm trying to
Well, they
give
were
them
on
the
an international tour. Now they're back
yeah,
in the
so they were
States.
doing
Let's
things,
see what
but I
happens.
think some things threw them out of whack. However, I have watched AEW's women's wrestling long enough to know that some things seem to be falling back into a similar pattern. So I will hopefully we'll see how it plays out. But sometimes I don't. Sometimes Tony does not help the argument that he doesn't like women's wrestling when he does some of the things that he does. I don't know him. I can't say whether he does or does not like women's wrestling. Sometimes it seems like he doesn't. And sometimes it seems like he just does it because he has to. And then sometimes he seems to put a lot of effort into it. And it seems like it's something that he does like. So but when he has 5-minute Rampage main events, when he has Britt go out and squash independent talent on Dynamite
I need to
in
ask
a
you
minute
about
and a
this.
half,
This
that's
is
a
something
problem.
we need to like take a quick side trip
Okay,
on this
sure.
because this does relate a little bit to the what might be considered controversial comments that Dave and Brian were
I
not
haven't
not
heard. So
intentionally
what
making.
did Dave and Brian? I have not heard
No,
what they
but
said.
it wasn't even that. I
Okay.
want to know what you thought of it. Would you have rather they left her off the show entirely or do what they did?
That's a hard sometimes it feels like, well, what's the point if you're only going to give me a minute match? Like, but on the other hand, I don't want them to use that as an excuse of, oh, we didn't have time. Make time. I don't listen. I enjoy like the MJF Adam Cole dancing stuff was really entertaining to me, but that could have gone towards a women's match. Like that whole, there were so many things that they can cut little things off of and have it go towards a women's match or shorten a men's match. Like it's not going to kill you to shorten certain matches. Like there, or, you know, it's not men's, and it seems to be the same thing. WWE was doing this and they still do sometimes. If a match is going to get cut, it's almost always the women.
Mm-hmm.
It's rarely ever men that are getting their time cut, and this has been a problem for decades, and it's still an issue, and we should not, major television companies should not be doing this in 2023. And there are some cases where there are some weeks where Impact has no women's wrestling at all. In those cases, they generally still are doing backstage things that are moving stories forward. I don't necessarily like no women's matches at all, but they're at least doing something to move things forward, to make women feel like they're an important part of the show. And so I think on the one hand, like you make regardless, I guess you make the women feel like they're not important. So either you don't, even if so you're giving them a minute, that makes me feel like, oh god, we have to have a women's match. Let's send Britt out there. Who's available from our who did we have here for ROH tapings? Let's put them on TV. Or call up who's the best, somebody's got a connection in Boston, who's the best independent woman that you can get on TV to wrestle Britt Baker, who's like TV ready. She's gonna squash you in a minute. We'll give you a payday. Like it just, if those, so these help. And then you turn around and you have a 5-minute match. So women got, between Dynamite and Rampage, women got 6 minutes of TV time. That's unacceptable. That's just, it's absurd. And so I don't, it's really hard because like I want the women to have representation every week. But then on the other hand, if you're going to waste my time and waste Britt's time and put her out there where her entrance takes longer than her match does. And like, I guess you could go with the argument, okay, she's a former women's world champion. She should be independent talent in no time at all. But then on the other hand, you're making Britt feel like she's just not good enough to have more than a minute. And on top of that, she's a former champion. You have this big storyline that it's been dragging on for months, and it seems to have no type of like it doesn't seem to be leading to anything.
Right.
And so it makes it just it does not help the argument.
It's a token woman's minute.
Yes. Yeah. That's what it feels like.
Essentially it's women's hey, here's your token women's moment on the show, and here now.
Yeah, and even Brad says, Blood and Guts didn't need to go 30 minutes after everyone else was in the match. The main event on Collision, while great, didn't need to be 30 minutes long. Right.
I think that my feeling this week after watching because I saw it last year, I thought it was a great idea, and I thought it would have been a lot better if they had made it the women's Royal,
Yeah, that would have been fun.
I mean, it would have been even. It wouldn't have been a Blood and Guts necessarily, although you could have you could have had props and so forth. I mean,
sure,
there's any number of things under any number of rings. So I mean, you could have actually
they could have
a little stuff in there.
They could do.
I just felt like there was almost. I felt like they should have given this one to the women this year.
Yes,
not like just because, but actually because it's a good. The setup is really good. It's a fun, fast-paced sort of style of match,
and it doesn't need to be an hour.
Like have the women in there.
You don't have to give them an hour-long Blood and Guts match or Royal Rumble. I mean, a Royal Rampage match or whatever. Like you don't have to give them that, but give them something. And so then this goes on top of the comments that Tony Khan has made about Blood and Guts, which he made, I guess, at some point this week. I have the quote here because my editor wrote an article about it, and I was like, oh, I have some things to say about it on Sunday. Because at the time that this comment came out, there was I got to explain this stuff with Athena. and I will explain about all of that. But
we'll do that next because I want that to be separate.
This whole thing is a mess, but it leads into a whole big thing about how Tony Khan handles women's wrestling. So when this whole thing started with the originals and the Outcasts, everybody's assumption was that it was going to lead to a blood and guts, because why wouldn't we assume that when you've got, because they've never had women's factions before, really. I mean, you had like the Vicious Vixens and you've had like little things here and there, but you've never had what they were attempting to do. And then, I mean, the Outcasts do only have 3 members, but supposedly, Mercedes was supposedly supposed to be involved. That didn't happen. And then you've only really got 3 core women involved on the original side, but there's more women on the roster that they could be utilizing, which we've talked about all the time. But they could be doing a lot more with it. And this thing has kind of fallen apart. And then now it seems like there is no real reason for them to even be doing this, because from the way Tony talks about it, there never was going to be a blood and guts match for women. And so the quote that I have here that Tony gave was, he said, "It would be an interesting idea. It could have been a great match. I definitely think Jamie Hayter's injury is probably a 5-on-5 there, given some of the depth issues, and especially given Willow Nightingale just got back, and putting her in that kind of a match after she had a major head injury in Japan probably wouldn't be very smart. We've had some other major injuries there, and when there was some fan momentum for that idea, I think the Outcast versus Jamie Britt and some others was really running red hot, and Jamie Hayter was part of that. Some of the momentum for that when I'm sorry, I think I read the wrong sentence. So he said, "I'm not sure at this moment, given some of the injuries that we've had, that was feasible," Khan said. Also, with so many of the women competing this week in the Owen Hart Cup tournament, it's a very hard-hitting match, and there is a lot of attention for it. Santana still hasn't been back from last year. The women's division is pretty beat up. They've been beating the hell out of each other. Probably was not a feasible idea for this year."
The men bleed every week.
Yeah, so there's a lot.
And they did the Owen tournament too. That's a bullshit argument, right? I call bullshit on the Owen tournament.
I do too.
Now, because the men did the Owen tournament at the same time as
yes.
And they were doing the Eliminator tournament on top of doing the Owen.
Right.
And I apologize for the storming in the background if it's coming through.
That's okay.
Hopefully we won't have any crazy tornadoes or whatever we've been having all these weeks.
So and then his argument about Jamie being injured is also bullshit, because Bryan Danielson was injured, and
Bryan Danielson's injured right now.
That happened. They had Takeshita and they replaced him with Pac. There are
he busted his arm doing a spot outside at Forbidden Door with Okada by the announcer table on the freaking floor.
Right. So
don't tell me the women. So I'm sorry. We gotta protect our poor women's division.
Yeah, because they're beating the hell out of each other. And then he sits there and he says, "Well, we have to be careful with Willow's head injury." Yet Willow just had a 20-minute main event on Friday night, so you must not have been too worried about her head. Or it must not have been as severe as you're letting us believe.
Okay, and then meanwhile we're having a whole debate about Kenny Omega being dropped on his head at Forbidden Door. So it's it can't be.
You can't use that argument and when you're doing the exact same thing with the men.
He's just essentially telling you that he doesn't care about women's wrestling by saying a bunch of stuff that I can call bullshit on immediately.
Right.
So I hate to be like that about it.
Well, but then so you look at this whole picture. You have the comments about the women's blood and guts. Then you have the 1-minute match with Britt, and then you have the 5-minute main event on Rampage. When you look at that whole picture, it's hard to beat the charges of you hate women's wrestling when you're doing things like that. And when you're making these type of excuses, you've got women. There's other women. There's Diamante. There's Kiera Hogan. There's Nyla. There's Penelope Ford. There's
Sky. Just make Rampage. How about this? Everybody's bitching about Rampage, and they're like, they don't know what to do with Rampage, and nobody's watching Rampage, and we should put Rampage at the end of Dynamite, and maybe we should put it at the end of Collision, but 3 hours is long, and so give Rampage to the women then.
That was my argument with Collision before we knew what Collision was. I was like, why
But
are we
now,
not
like,
giving
okay, so Collision and Dynamite are going to be like the A and B show, and it'll go back and forth because
right?
it's just going to depend on who's hotter on any given week. So give Rampage to the women and let them have a show.
Yes. Then they can build. Then you can
Let them
build.
define themselves. Let
You
them
can
be.
build up. You can build characters. You can build storylines because it seems like now, like, because Taya and Sky Blue
Keep
had a
signing them.
yeah, Taya and Sky Blue had a really great match on Collision last night, and I think they got nearly 9 minutes,
You
which
can't
was
book
great.
an hour of women's wrestling on a Friday night.
Yeah, and
with Sky Blue, Jade, Statlander, Britt, Ruby, who they're doing nothing with.
Sakura on TV, you idiot.
Emi Sakura, just in the back.
Emi Sakura is probably the best woman one of the best women they've got on that roster, and they barely use her.
Give me a list of the women on the roster right now. I could book an hour show, and I know dick about it.
Right.
I mean, seriously, like,
yeah,
I'm actually like convincing myself that Rampage should be. I've had
I would prefer
the person who suggested to me
all women's show. What was
the person who suggested to me that the women get what they thought was Collision at the time, like you were talking about. But the person who suggested that was a man, because he said that it would give the women a chance to define themselves instead of trying to fight for time with John Moxley.
And they also focus on the same women over and over, which was the problem in WWE.
But they keep signing them.
They couldn't build a women's division around because it was always the 4 horsewomen, and they just building.
But they just signed Billy Starks too. So it's they just stop.
You think Mercedes Moné
is gonna, but you're not using the women except for the other 3.
Yeah, do you think Mercedes Moné wants to come to a company where this is how they treat their women? This is how they book them? Why would Mercedes sign to that? Why would she sign a contract to do that when she can go to Japan and she can be heavily featured? Other women are heavily featured. She was on Strong. Like, it is sad when New Japan Strong has booked women the way that they have. They're a new company.
They're brand new at it.
And they are doing a better job. Like, they are doing a better job of the way they present the women than AEW has been doing. And that's the problem.
Okay.
So and what's also a huge...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, so now that the women have main evented on an ROH pay-per-view, AEW is the only promotion that has not had women main event ever on a pay-per-view. WWE has done it multiple times. Impact has done it multiple times. ROH has done it. Of course, it's just the one time, but they finally did it. New Japan Strong.
They weren't going to do it.
New Japan Strong has had... No, they were not going to do it.
We'll get on that in a second.
Yes, but New Japan Strong has had women main event. AEW has not. That is a huge glaring problem that has got to be fixed. And no, you can't just do a match for the sake of doing a main event. Like, I get it. But then you build your women to give them a reason to main event, because you're not doing that. You're not giving them a reason to main event when you could. And now that we're not getting a blood and guts match at all, then what is the point of this? And there was a comment about Jamie Hayter getting injured, changing things. And I do agree with that. I do think but then that's when you think on your feet and you do, okay, what do we need to do? Look at what Impact had to do. They had no Josh Alexander and they had to figure it out. So if you are losing one of your biggest women's wrestler, then you find somebody else and give them a minute to give them.
Then he said in the same comment that you just read to me that Guevara or whatnot is
Santana.
Santana, excuse me, is not back from last year's Blood and Guts, and it's like, well, then why are you doing a men's Blood and Guts?
Right. Yeah.
Because you should be. I mean, you're the ones running around. QT tells us all the time that he doesn't see men or women wrestlers. He just sees wrestlers. So.
Right.
If you just see wrestlers, why are the rules?
Yeah, QT.
You almost like Tony just kind of like self-owned himself on that one a little bit because it's like on a few of those. I mean, if you're gonna make okay, so now that to me is almost worse because it seems more. It's almost like you're blowing people off entirely instead of addressing the issue because you just made up a bunch of like.
Which he tends to do. People,
because those are a bunch of like non sequitur. They have nothing to do. Those are like false equivalencies, and then and then a bunch of like things where you're like, but you let them men do it.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
men just
It
did
is,
it.
and he tends to do that on questions that he like on scrums and things like that. He will not answer things. He will just kind of respond to certain things, but not the other parts. Like I can't remember what the question was during the scrum because I watched the ROH scrum. It was playing in the background while I was trying to work on an article and then they brought out Shibata and Shibata was using he was using a translation app on his phone to talk. And I was like, well, now
Oh,
I have to pay
no.
attention. And they did bring out Athena, but somebody asked him a question about women's wrestling and I forget exactly what the question was. It was a really great question. I wish I remembered what it was. And he answered part of it, and I was like, but I said like I was like, that's not what she asked. That's not the question, which he tends to do. And so and I understand, like, I don't work in TV and I know there's certain, certain things. And I know that, advertisers and things like that, like if for them, they look at women's wrestling and if the women's wrestling is not drawing for them, then they don't want focus on it. Like, so I get that he has to go with that. But at some point, you're going to just have to get over it. And then you're going to have to WWE on the one hand, like I know sometimes on SmackDown they have like multiple women's matches, but they only last like 2 minutes a piece, which is part of the reason I stopped watching altogether was how they treated women. But they're still featuring women, which I know on the one hand, you don't want to feature women just to feature women. Like you want to give them stories and you want to give them things.
Big debate.
Yeah, but then and then of course I go back to Impact because that's the one thing that they've always been really good at, even when it was TNA, even when it was LOL TNA. Like they were still, the Knockouts division was still very prominent. And it still is. And now you've got Deanna and you've got Trinity over there. And you've got like Jody Threat and you've got some really great women over there. And they're getting TV time and they're getting all these opportunities. And so then because I listened to an interview, I transcribed an interview that Britt did for Mandrews has a podcast, which I didn't know that he did. But she was talking about it and she was like, I want to do a blood and guts. Women have never been able to do that. We've never been able to do a ladder match before. And she was like, she was like, we've never been given these opportunities. We've never main evented a pay-per-view before. She's like, I want all of these things. So I'm like, you've got your former champion who is arguably probably the best known woman that you've got, one of the best. People still love Britt. She's a very big name in the AEW women's division, and she's going on podcasts talking about these things that she wants to do. And then you're turning around and saying, oh, we can't do blood and guts because one person is injured. Can't do it. We can't.
Yeah, right. Well, these wrestlers are pretty beat up, and those other wrestlers are pretty beat up.
I'm like, what wrestler is not beat up?
Exactly. I mean, the beat up thing is like that to me is so like that's a lame ass excuse in pro sports. Everybody's beat up in pro sports. Everybody's playing with. I
mean, I guess he's not like, on the one hand, it's not like he's gonna just come out and be like, no, I don't want the women to have it, because you can't do that because then he's gonna get reamed for that.
Well, this is, I think, what Brian and Dave were trying to argue. They were having a conversation about, do you have the match or do you not have the match? So do you have a 5-minute match that's a big like joke, or do you not do it? And Dave's biggest thing was he was so focused on the backlash of not having a women's match on there. Because his focus was on how social would react to them not having a women's match.
I mean, it's a valid argument how social media was going to react, because I know how I would react.
You're right. And I mean,
but then I also know how.
And then Brian was saying, what Brian was saying was that would it have been better to just leave it off entirely and take the heat from social, because it makes it feel unimportant if it makes it just feel unimportant it on there. I think that, I mean, I didn't find what they were saying controversial. I think that they were so focused on how people would react. And there was one thing that I will get to in 1 second. They were so focused on how someone would react, like people would react, that the heart of the issue was kind of completely overlooked, which is that they're not booking the women right at all.
Right.
And so like that to me. But then at one point, Brian used the term, you're doing it for the stop watchers. And I kind of bristled at that being the way that was, because that phrasing is essentially like you admitting, just like Tony is not admit. It's a very passive aggressive way of saying, especially since I know somebody who I'm like, hey, fuck off, okay? Because that's not why
I'm glad
she
you
did
said
it.
it because I had to bite my tongue.
Because I mean, but I bristled at the comment a little bit because I was like, okay, but
why do I time matches? Why do I have to time them? Because women are not getting
but that was
what they
right.
should be.
And
They're
that was
not,
what I think that they were.
or there are
They
some,
were missing the entire point,
right.
which was is like it's not about do I do the 5 minutes? It's about set the show up better so it's not 5 minutes.
Yeah. And that's the point. Like, cause so then I can show you, like, if you look at, sure, there are some short knockout time matches. There are 5-minute matches. Sometimes they're less than that. It's not great, but it doesn't happen nearly as often as it's happening in other companies. Of course, I don't time WWE matches anymore because it was ridiculous and I could not stand how they book the women. And I was just like, I'm not watching this anymore. I'm not going to force myself to watch it just to make a point. But I wouldn't have to time these matches if you would, especially if you would you have 3 TV shows now. I wouldn't have to time these women. I wouldn't have to time matches if you women's
wrestling on your show, and then take the women off there and let them all go do whatever else. And I guess, I mean, or just like, I mean, that's not really the solution because obviously I want like
sure. No, I know what you mean.
I think it's unfair to talk about representation and then blow off women. Like it's like
we're still having the same fucking conversations that we were having, you know, years ago when we were doing the give divas a chance bullshit. Now AEW is going to end up
if they started it though. This is my argument with him is that you started it. You said you were going to make women's wrestling important on your shows.
Mm-hmm.
You set that expectation. If you've been you like, we're going to do whatever we want.
Your whole thing was to be an alternative to WWE.
Correct.
Then that means more women's wrestling. Listen to the fans who want women's wrestling. And they will. That's what this has been a problem since day one. We are in year 4 now. We are still having the same conversations. We're having the same conversations that we're having from 2 years ago when I first started timing matches in the first place to prove a point. And there are days that I'm like, I don't know what the point of this is. I have thought about, you know, at the end of this year, is that going to be it? Because it doesn't do, I mean, it does and it doesn't, but I'm not doing
because they mentioned it on their radio show and they're so it must be, it's making a dent. If it's annoying you, that means it's making a dent to you. I mean, that means that somebody that's a lot of voice to make its way onto that into that conversation with those people.
I mean, and I'm not the only one who times matches. And there's women like Kristen Ashley who does, like, she has a stuff where she will do, like, she's released a graphic earlier this week about 6 months of wrestling, where she combined, like, I think so, like WWE's like all 3 of the, like, I think it's NXT, SmackDown, and Raw are one thing, and NXT, like, or I'm sorry, WWE, AEW, like all their shows, like, but she's released it, and just looking, and of course it's just the graphic, and then she's got a link to like more details of how it actually breaks down, especially because, you know, SmackDown has a really big problem with their women's wrestling. There are lots of weeks where they have none at all, but if you look just at their graphic she tweeted, AEW has the lowest percentage of women's matches from January to June. And it's either the least, I don't know if it's just least amount or least amount of time given to women's matches, I guess is what it is. I need to look more in depth. I just haven't had a chance to.
That on our
but
thingy.
Like, yeah, so but multiple people, there are multiple women who are having to do this because this is still a problem. I shouldn't have to do your work for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have an analytics person who crunches numbers for you all the time. Like, so you know that this is not a problem, or I'm sorry, you know that this is a problem and that you can't ignore it. But yeah, so there's just, I'm gonna go over here to the comments because I've been over here and just see. So let's see, because we're gonna get into we'll get into the AEW.
We'll finish up with that stuff
because some of the stuff that happened with Ring of Honor is connected to the AEW stuff. And so it's one big picture, and you're looking, and Tony is involved. He is the owner of both companies. And so
Well, he's the general manager.
Yeah.
By the way.
He's the chairman, is what they used on our. I was like, did they?
His
purposely
dad is
use
the
that?
boss of AEW. So.
Yeah. So Grace said it's very consistent. It's that it is very inconsistent on every level. Yes. And he said overall, they need to showcase the women's roster more, 100%. And Daza says, well, Tony needs to ask himself if one person being injured brings the women's division to a halt, maybe he needs to strengthen it more. Thank you, Daza. That is
amen, brother.
Riho, I think, has done some dark matches, but she's also, I believe, I could be wrong. I thought that she was still traveling back and forth in Japan, but I'm not sure, or if I'm thinking of Shida as well, because I know Shida was doing that for a while. But I do know that Riho has done some dark matches. I believe that they're not on TV, and that it is. There's a comment that it's still a problem in WWE. Yeah, I don't watch WWE anymore. I still hear.
Yeah, we would try not to speak to wrestling we're not watching. Probably.
Yeah, but I have heard that NXT has been doing a really good job at showcasing women's wrestling, and they have been for a while, which they used to do before. And then and this Impact lost Josh Alexander and Mickie James before the same pay-per-view, and they figured it out. Exactly.
Yep.
Daza says Saraya, Ruby, Storm, Valkyrie, Athena versus Britt, Willow, Chris, Sky, and Shida. There's a 10-women match for Blood and Guts.
Or even, and
you can plug in if you need to. You can plug in Nyla. You've got Marina.
You've got Nyla,
Marina would actually be a really good. The style of wrestling that Marina does would actually probably fit well in a Blood and Guts type of match.
Yep.
You can feature. There's Penelope Ford. Like, there are plenty of women that you could. They've got. If you're not going to give them opportunity, they can't shine if you're not giving them.
There she is. Okay.
Yeah, you're not getting opportunity. If you're not going to give them places to shine, then they're not going to be able to. You have to give them the opportunity to be able to do anything. Let them rise to the challenge. Yeah, they may fall on their face, but I mean, what else are they going to do? Sit in catering?
Well, if it sucks, then we all know it sucks. It's been tried. We can all move on.
Yeah. Brad says the crazy thing is that the talent at AEW and the ROH women's division is really, really good, but the division is the worst booked in wrestling. Yes, that is. Yes, I would 100% agree with that, Brad. Daza said, I hope a lot of people check out this discussion. Me too. And
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll probably clip some of that. But yeah, it is a larger issue because of what happened with ROH. So with ROH, I will explain for people who are not keeping up with ROH or only have heard bits and pieces. So the original main event for Death Before Dishonor was supposed to be Claudio Castagnoli versus Mark Briscoe. This was a match that was set up in maybe 10 minutes. It was Mark Briscoe he put himself in a triple threat match that he was not even involved in the match. It was Tony Nese and JD Drake. Then he decided he was going to be in it too. Fine. Goes backstage. They show a promo with Eddie Kingston telling Mark Briscoe, you need to challenge Claudio for the title. You should be champion. Mark Briscoe, sure, that makes sense. I see what Eddie's saying. Let's do it. Claudio's like, don't listen to Eddie Kingston ever. And also, you're not ready. Let's have a match. It's the main event. That's literally how it was built. Like, it was a good main event. I get what they were doing because they probably were going to put the title on Mark Briscoe. You want to send the people home happy. Mark Briscoe should be champion in ROH. I understand but
okay, so why didn't we scrap the whole pay-per-view? Because Mark Briscoe got hurt. Because
yeah, by that logic,
by the logic that we're going by for the women, then since Mark Briscoe got hurt, then we shouldn't have a Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view because the men's division is beat up and Mark Briscoe is injured.
Yeah, and Mark Briscoe apparently is gonna, from what Fightful's reporting, is gonna need surgery and is gonna be out for a while.
Oh, well, then ROH is over then.
Yeah, right. No more ROH. Back to dark.
Sorry. I don't mean to be like,
it is when you're using that. Just shows you how.
I don't mean to be like a little bit of a troll about it, but I do mean to be a little bit of a troll about it.
Sometimes you deserve it when you say the things that you say.
Yeah.
But that was going to be the main event, even though the story for weeks has been Athena. It's been how dominant she is. It's nobody can beat her. Nobody in AEW can beat her. Nobody in ROH can beat her. She is the star of ROH. She's there week in and week out. On the weeks that she doesn't have matches, she's backstage cutting promos. She's moving the women's division forward. She's moving her story forward. She's given, and then she's telling you who she's going to wrestle next. And she's doing all of these things. So she is the star of ROH, whether they want her, whether they meant for her to be or not. She is the star of ROH. And we've talked about some of this, Claudio missed some things because the day that he was in Japan for Dominion, they were filming ROH. They filmed 4 episodes, so he missed all of that, so he wasn't on TV. The Lucha Brothers have not been featured. Apparently some of it was because they were down in Mexico wrestling, and so they were unavailable for tapings. Apparently they've gotten that cleared up, and that's not an issue anymore, which doesn't matter because they dropped the titles to Aussie Open. Which should be a bigger deal. And I feel a little bad for them because nobody's talking about Aussie Open winning. And on any other show, that probably would have been a big story. Aussie Open's amazing. Mark was cleared. He came back. They won the titles in a really great 4-way for the titles. But so that Lucha Brothers weren't there. Samoa Joe wrestled some. But a lot of them are involved in AEW type of things. Athena is not, which we've talked about before, is like why Athena should be on TV. But then on the other hand, you need to build your women's division around Athena. So anyway, so the matches, so they were like, okay, Claudio will announce his match next week because he's on sabbatical. So then they're building the women. Athena had hinted at it being Willow. They were obviously waiting for the Owen tournament to end, which makes perfect sense. It ends, and they are still, so they're going back and forth on Twitter, and they make the match, and Athena is like having a temper tantrum on Twitter. She was like, absolutely not. I am not, my mom will not let me wrestle this match. Like that was one of the excuses she used. And then she was like, I will do it if I can main event. And if I get a special entrance. Willow's like, this is the only thing we can agree on. So it seemed like this is it. Okay, finally, we're getting this women's main event. Thursday night, maybe an hour into the show, they announced that Claudio versus Pac is the main event. Twitter lost it, including
I know you did.
I was like, I know I've already dropped one F-bomb on this episode, but are you freaking kidding me? Like, this match was just made at Blood and Guts. This match was made at 2 a.m. They literally, Tony Khan sent out a tweet at 2 a.m. to announce the match happening following Blood and Guts.
Oh, that's
this is your main event, and you're telling me this is your main event?
That's
when
sketchy.
Athena has been doing this for weeks, and then Athena has been hinting on Twitter that she is gonna main event, and then you're gonna turn around and do this.
Yeah, but dropping it in the middle of the night, like,
yeah, lots of people. So they didn't, even when they announced the match, they didn't say it was the main event until they got to ROH TV. And so we were just like, I was like, are you kidding? Like, did they really just said that that's going to be the main event? Like, this is not it. Like, I love Claudio. I love Pac. It's going to be a great match. It is not a main event match when it was made 24 hours ago.
Right.
And so I was like, this is not it. So I was livid. Lots of people on Twitter were really upset about it. So then Friday during 0 hour, they just randomly were like, we're going to have a double main event. Athena and Willow and Claudio and Pac. It was still made it seem like, and so I even tweeted, I said, oh, so they finally made this, did they make it a double main event because of how everybody reacted last night? So then as the show is progressing, they all of a sudden say Athena and Willow are going to be the second half of the double main event. It is in the middle of the pay-per-view. And I was like, what the hell? Like, of course, I'm overjoyed that this should have been it all along. But why are you handling it like this? Like, I talked to somebody who flat out told me he did not buy Death Before Dishonor because Athena versus Willow was not the main event. He didn't buy it. So they missed out. I don't know. I'm sure there maybe were not as many people, but that's there. I'm sure. And I'm sure the person who told me that is not the only one who didn't buy the pay-per-view because of that. And so I was just like, what the hell are they doing? So then during the press conference, Athena says, when he told us 2 weeks ago we were getting the ball, that when she was talking about how great it was. So I was like, wait, you knew 2 weeks ago. So I guess when they found out Mark Briscoe was injured and that match would not be happening, it sounds like Tony said, okay, Athena, now you can have the main event because Mark Briscoe is injured. Now you get the spot. But you've known for 2 weeks. But you said on Thursday night it was Claudio versus Pac. Then you said during 0 Hour it was a double main event. Then during Death Before Dishonor, you say that it's the women are going to close the show. Like, what is happening? The only thing I can come up with is that it was just miscommunication, but it made no sense whatsoever.
It doesn't look great.
No. And so when you look at this entire picture of no women's blood and
All
guts,
the stuff we've been
probably never going to be a blood and guts. Britt gets a minute match. Rampage has a 5-minute match. You don't know whether Athena versus Willow, who earned that spot. Not only did they deserve it, they earned it. And you planned a trilogy, because Tony even said, like, because somebody asked him about, like, I guess basically kind of how long this had been planned, and he's like, well, we've been wanting to do a trilogy because back at the first set of ROH tapings, it was the last match they filmed was Willow versus Athena, which aired in episode 2, which was the first time 2 Black women had ever main evented ROH. So these women have made history every single time they have wrestled. So he knew then he wanted it to be a trilogy. So you've had months of planning this, and you're going to tell me that and then you're going to handle it the way that you did. Like, when you look at the entire picture, it just feels like he doesn't know what to do with women's wrestling. And women and people were like, and I saw people tweeting, they were like, well, no matter what happens at this pay-per-view, my main event is Willow versus Athena. So I was like, that is a testament to the people who are watching every week. We have watched every single week. We've watched the story build. We watched them on Rampage, and they even the series of Willow finally gets a win over Athena. They're also the first 2 Black women who have ever main evented Rampage on top of that. And so you're having all these historic things, but you botch the booking so bad.
I think you need to put Nikki's question up, because this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah. So Nikki said, do you think they announced the men as the main event because they thought they'd get more viewers?
This was honestly, because that's what I'm sitting here as you're telling me this story. The more you're getting to it, my brain is going, this sounds like they were trying to sell the pay-per-view on a men's main event and then bait and switch people.
That's what I was going to say. So that's a bait and switch.
Which is even worse. That's not good for ROH viewers. That's not good for me wanting to become an ROH viewer, because I don't want to be baited and switched by my company.
And that's not a thing. And that's weird, because that's not a thing they do. Like, they don't typically do that. And
this is, I mean, she's asking the question my brain is forming.
Card obviously is subject to change, but they don't generally mean bait and switch. And AEW doesn't typically do that. ROH has never, they don't do that. So it's very weird.
That reeks of, baiting and switching a little bit, which sucks, because that says to me, that almost reinforces all the other stuff about you just not caring about women.
And that you don't think women can sell a pay-per-view when, and I know Twitter is a very niche. I know it's not the whole wrestling public. I know Facebook, Instagram, social media in general. I know it's just a very...
It's not real life. Are you sure?
It is and it isn't, because you have people who are watching your product every single week. They are going on social media telling you what they want to see.
They want you to believe it's not, but it is, because you wouldn't spend so much time advertising on it, and you wouldn't spend... Yep. Dave and Brian wouldn't have spent half of that conversation worrying about how social media would react to that.
Right. Well,
that was half their conversation was essentially, how would the public social media, wrestling Twitter, an R-squared circle. I hope I don't get blackballed now. But that's what they were.
Right.
Well, if it didn't matter, you wouldn't have the conversation and factor in the backlash if it didn't matter.
Right. And then you have Athena and Willow essentially building their story through social, like they're using social media as an extension. So you have Athena refusing to do them. Like, well, first of all, they announced they showed that
He
clip.
like stepped on his own storytelling.
Yeah, they released a video and it's a backstage segment and it was talking about how Willow was, officially challenging for the title. And they're like, and then Stokely and Jerry Lynn were there because they're the board of directors. And they're like, this is the match. We're going to do it. And then Athena comes into the shot and she was like, no, we're not. And then she's like, where is Tony Khan? I'm going to tell him, well, Tony comes. And he was like, no, Athena, you're doing the match. And she's like, and so then that's when they were quote tweeting it. And she's like, no, I won't do it unless she's like, my mom says I can't do it. And then Athena, and then like her and Willow are going back and forth. So they're using social media as a tool to help promote this match and to give the idea that they may main event, which is why there were people who were going to buy it because they were like, oh, Athena said she'll only do this match if she gets the main event. They clearly are going to main event. I'm going to buy the pay-per-view. But then you go on. So they are using social media, even if it doesn't matter. They clearly, they're announcing. They announced Shibata versus Daniel Garcia after Collision the Saturday before at 1 a.m. They released the faux press conference that I talked about last week. They announced that Claudio versus Pac was actually happening. They didn't say it was the main event, but they announced it at 2 a.m. that the match was official. So they're using social media to promote these matches. So social media does matter, whether they want to say it doesn't. Daza says Claudio and Pac having to do a match after being in Blood and Guts only a few days before. I'm worried about those beat up guys.
Exactly.
They had glass. They had all kinds of weapons. But they got to main event. Their match was really great.
That's what we like to call a double standard.
Imagine that. Double standards in wrestling? We don't do that.
Double standards.
Despite all of this,
all of that,
Athena and Willow were able to block it all out and do what they needed to do. They were given the main event spot that they earned, and they killed it. That was the best women's match I've probably seen this year. It was Athena's best match she's had, and Athena has had some great matches this year. All her matches with Willow have been great. That was by far their best one. It was it was really cool because they were doing a love letter to women's wrestling who came before them in Women of Honor and Shimmer. They were doing, they did some moves because I wasn't super familiar. Like I know who the women were, but I'm not familiar with their work. But so Athena was talking about it in the scrum. They did some moves from Mischief and Daisy Hayes and Alexis Lurie, who is Mickie James now. They did a move that they did one of Daphne's moves. They did these really beautiful things in it. They delivered. But and then so going back to Athena's really great match, like she's wrestled Mina Yamashita. She's wrestled Emi Sakura. She had a phenomenal match with. So like, and she had that, and you could even go back to the dark match that started all of this when she wrestled Jody Threat in October of last year on Dark, that people lost their minds about with this fake outrage, but it ended up turning Athena's career around in AEW completely. But that's just a testament to Athena's work. But the match was incredible. They delivered. There were men chanting women's wrestling during that match. Like you could hear it picked up on camera because I looked at Nikki and I said, of course I couldn't tweet because I was timing because that's what I do. And I looked at
you stopwatch types.
Yeah, stopwatch. Yeah, and so I looked at Nikki and I was like, that's men chanting women's wrestling. Like that's important. And I was like, that's a really big deal. And it was just, they were all into it. They delivered. They made history. They're the first women to ever main event ROH pay-per-view. And there were 2 Black women who did it. So like I said, every single match of their trilogy has been historic, which says a lot to them. And I think it was Phil Lindsay who said that the Briscoes versus FTR's trilogy defined the first year of ROH under Tony Khan. Athena versus Willow is defining year 2. And that is huge praise.
Awesome.
And they should be treated as such. Like Tony should be treating them that way. then after the match, I see people like Will Ospreay talking about how
Yeah, I
great
saw
that
that.
match was and how they deserved that spot and they earned it and they delivered a home run. And there's wrestlers from other companies talking about how good the match was and how important it was. So it shows you that if you give these women the spot, that they will more than likely, they're
And our
gonna
own
knock it out of
network
the
guys.
park.
I know you're not in the Discord, but they've been tagging me a lot this week as things have gone on with that because they're, Mel and Sam have been banging the drum for this to happen for weeks and all of these. And I'm like, you got to give all the credit to Sam. She's the one that wrote the great article and everything else. I mean, I agree with her, and we have had these discussions, and we have been saying that she should do it. I was like, but I mean, we got to definitely, big shout out to Sam for being the one that's, I mean, but they like Jeremy Feinstein from Speaking of Strong Style was so very nice this week and basically like told us to take our victory lap, and
he did. That was very.
I think you especially need to take the lap because you even wrote
I had
very
one of my
insightful article about it.
And my editor for the website that I wrote that for, he was like, I'm going to credit Sam for this because she's been banging this drum for weeks, and I'm not doing anything other than amplifying what I'm seeing. Athena and Willow have been killing it. A lot of us have seen what Willow's been doing outside of ROH, what she's done in New Japan Strong. She was not supposed to win that title, and she ran with the opportunity she was given, which goes back to, if you give women these opportunities, give them the opportunity to shine. Give the women these opportunities because they can't do anything when they're not on TV. If you're not giving that to them, you can't see what they can do. And not everything is going to go as well as what Willow did. But that's fine. You have to. It's better than them just sitting there doing nothing. And you can't.
Not every men's program's perfect either. So
no, there's lots. I mean, QTV gets on TV every damn
week.
Jeff Jarrett's on TV all the time. For some people, that's for them. Which, whatever. I'm not. Not necessarily for me, but if it's for you, fine. But then give the women. They do these QTV segments could be women's matches. Like they could be. There's lots of things that you could be doing to give them this stuff. But if you're not giving them the opportunity, then they can't show you what they can do if you don't give them to them. And then so I think people should rightfully be like, well, look at what Athena's doing. So if that's they should hold that match up. They should hold this trilogy up to Tony when he says, well, this and that. Well, then look at Athena. You gave her the opportunity, and look what she did with that opportunity.
I'd be interested in what the late buys are going to be because a lot of people were like surprised after the fact because you said they weren't going to do it unless it was this, and then when it wasn't that, I think that some people did actually purchase after because the match was everywhere. I mean, it was everywhere. I actually was really great. It was nice to wake up to Twitter just marking out like crazy about.
It took me so long to get to my article because I was just looking at Twitter and it was funny. Brad, I think Brad probably is part of the reason she saw this because Athena has retweeted me a couple of times, but Brad quote tweeted the time where they got 20 minutes and he quote tweeted it and he tagged Athena and Willow in it. Athena retweeted it and I ended up with like 30 likes on it. I don't think I've ever had a match get 30, which I don't do it for the likes. It's not for that.
Obviously, no, but it is like, but nice you are trying to like actually get a point across. I think that very often it gets lost in the shuffle is like about representation and things like that. And like, we still count because we still make 80 cents on your dollar. And we still, I mean, it's not like women's lib is not done. And we are like, oh, yay.
Right.
Like, I mean, we're not clearly because of like, you just said that you can't do that. And then made a main event with the men, but not the women. And it's like, well, are you babying your women?
That's what it sounds like. Grace said every time Willow comes out, she gets a huge pop.
It's
she
true.
does. She got, oh God, it was great. She got
we've seen her a few times this year now.
She got the rap before the when she because Ian always raps for her, and sometimes Ian will sing and sometimes Caprice will sing, and they do every time in ROH, and it's become this thing that some fans hate it. Most fans love it. Willow loves it. And so we got that. Like it was, and I was hoping we would. And they did the rap. And then Athena got this incredible, and so Willow had brand new gear. She looked amazing. Athena looked amazing. She had these beautiful angel wings that she was wearing, and she just, and her makeup and her whole presentation was that of a champion, which she should get. And Athena, I will still say, and I'm a huge fan of Athena and Willow. I love both of them. They're two completely separate types of wrestlers and characters, but what they're doing is special, separately and together. They are doing very special things, and that match reinforced for me that Athena is the best women's champion in wrestling, and she showed it, and she won. And so so there's some concern, which we talked about last week, is what do you have Willow lose yet another title match? But on the other hand, Athena's story is that nobody can beat her. So it would make sense. She's already beat Athena once. So, and Willow once, and Willow got the best of her on Rampage. So yeah, she's gonna change up her game a little bit. And like Athena said, she was like, every single one of my matches is on, and then she did this nice little plug of is on watchroh.com. And she was like,
awesome.
that people can she's like, basically people can scout me. And so Athena Willow got the best of me. But the story is that nobody can beat her. So I was not surprised when she retained. I both, like Nikki and I, during the match, I was like, tap out. And then I was like, don't tap out. Cause like, I was so like, I would not have cared either way who won that match, because they are both, but I think ROH, because they are still, they're 21 weeks in. So they're very early into this new thing that they're doing. Athena is the person you build your women's division around. She has proved that. Like, you have to have the women step up to what she is doing. So you've got your Kiera Hogans, and you've got your Layla Hirsch's, and you've got Diamante, and you've got Trisha Dora, and you have these women. Bring in women. I still am holding out that Jordan is coming in. I don't know that she is. Maybe she sees how Tony's booking women and is like, maybe not. maybe I'll go to Japan because I see what you're doing. But Athena, so if you're having Athena do the things that she's doing, and now, so Athena's new thing that she's been saying the last few weeks is that she's the forever champion. Nobody can beat her. Yay. And so now she became on Thursday, she became the longest reigning ROH women's champion ever.
Awesome.
So I was like, I'm glad that they didn't make her turn around and drop the title the very next night after she reached that big, that's a huge milestone. And they're doing really big things with her. I hope they continue to do really big things with her. As she said, as far as she's concerned, Willow is no longer a threat to her. She's done. So it sounds like maybe they're going to keep Willow on AEW for a while, which they should. Willow has gotten herself over so well that I don't want her to be lost in the shuffle. Apparently she was not on Collision last night, because I saw on her Insta story she's in the Dominican Republic, which she deserves. She deserves to be on vacation after what she's been doing, especially since February. So it'll be interesting to see how they move forward and who continues to challenge Athena. Are they going to bring down Nyla Rose, bring in Marina,
why not?
Bring in,
that'd be fun.
Penelope. You're not going to use them on TV. Bring in Penelope. Like, bring in some of these women to bring in some more indie talent. They got Utami wrestled Trisha Dora, which is huge. Yeah. And that was a really great match. And she actually got the win over Trish. But they're doing, like, Maki Ito says that she wants to wrestle, like, she wants to be an AEW full time. Like, she wants to sign a contract. Bring in Maki Ito. Like, bring in these women and do something with them. Give them to, because Athena she said it's on her bucket list to go to Japan, but she said, in the meantime, send them to me. I will break them and send them back.
There you go.
So yeah, and Nikki said she loves both of them so much, and huge fan of them both. And she said, as much as I love Willow, Athena is it right now, which I agree with. I don't think her streak should end right now. I can see her holding the title through at least to Final Battle. Final Battle is where she originally won the title. They could potentially have her be someone who was champion longer than a year. They're only doing 3 pay-per-views per year right now, and so this is the last pay-per-view until December. I don't know what they're going to do in the meantime. She could potentially lose on just, a random Thursday night. But, I see her probably holding the title through Final Battle. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with her, and I hope she keeps getting these opportunities, and I hope she keeps growing. And then I hope, if they're gonna let the male champions go be on AEW TV, then you should. If you're not going to keep the brand separate, which it sounds like they're not going to be keeping the brand separate right now, then Athena deserves to be on TV too. Let her go back and forth and use her, because what she's doing right now is special and people deserve to see it. Whether they're paying the $9.99 a month for Honor Club, which, I mean, the way Athena's been doing, she's worth the $9.99 a month alone.
Well, why not feature her on AEW television and see if you can get some signups for ROH
right,
TV.
Exactly. Yeah,
she's good, and people go, "Oh, where's this? Why am I not seeing her?" Because this is where she is.
Right.
So
right. Yeah. So I despite the way that women's wrestling is being ran, I am extremely happy for when the women do get their opportunities and they are hopefully given time to shine. You can't really shine that much in a minute match. Can't really shine that much in a 5-minute match either in some cases. But Athena, I mean, they proved it. You give them the stories, you give them the time, you build them up to where they can main event a pay-per-view, and then people will want to see it. They will beg to see it. Yeah. And Brad makes an excellent point, and I agree 100%. I'd love for them to feature Athena on AEW, but they can't get her their own way to do it properly. Yeah. Right. So it's better to keep her where she is, where she can flourish and she is the star, and they can book her properly, because they're not doing that. And that makes me, and that is what I worry about for Willow, because Tony says the right things, but then he doesn't always follow through with the right things when it comes to Willow. I mean, you kind of, I saw somebody make the comment the other day that, Krista Statlander returned to all this big fanfare, and she's defended her title 6 times, and she's doing the open challenge, which I enjoy. I think it's fun to do with that title, especially because that's what Jade was doing. But they've kind of lost some of the fanfare that she had, and they've kind of and they seem to just keep focusing on the same women over and over. And it sounds they asked when I was doing that transcribing that interview the other day, Britt was saying that she wants to wrestle Saraya at All In, because she was like at All In, because she was like she got that win over me, and she's like, I would love nothing more than the best revenge would be to beat her in London in front of her mother, is what she said. Of her. So it seems like that's probably what they're gonna do. But then what do you do in the meantime, and what are they doing with the other women? What's the point of the Outcasts and the Originals now if there is no blood and guts? How are you moving them forward? And Ruby Soho has done really, I think that's been one of the really good things about this, is Ruby Soho, I think, has done a really good job in this this hill run she's done in this group with them. Toni Storm is amazing as well. It'll be interesting to see what they do. But then what do you do with Sky Blue? And Sky Blue is getting more and more popular as weeks go on. I mean, some of it is because of what she looks like, and so she's drawing a lot of male attention. But she's really improved a lot. She seems to get better every single week, so it is good to have her in spots where she's kind of under Britt, under a champion and things like that. But and then they have Willow in and out. You've got Sheeta in and out. You've got Riho in and out. But there's other women that you could be doing the same thing with. And it'll be interesting to see how All In. And I know Daza asked earlier, when does the build for All In start? I don't know, but we already have an All Out match, because Darby has challenged Luchasaurus / Christian for the TNT Championship. And then we've got Scorpio Sky is looking on, so maybe Scorpio is champion before we get to All Out. So Daza said, speaking of Saraya's mother, Sweet Saraya as she's called, she is legit the scariest wrestler ever. I have heard some stories about her that are not she's got a bit of a reputation. I do too. Is that I love how Christian is acting like he won that title. It makes it so much better. It's the way Christian is, the stuff Christian's doing
better
now.
This is better, Christian. I like. This is better.
And it was so funny when he said to CM Punk last night, "Who carries around a title that's not theirs?" As Christian standing there, and Christian's done it before. Like I think it was, I can't remember if it was Jim Valley who tweeted it. Somebody tweeted, and it was a picture of Edge and Christian, and Christian had some big trophy that he didn't win, and he was carrying around. And this is so. But yeah, I love the stuff that they're doing with Christian. It makes the TNT title more interesting for right now. And so I love Christian. I've always been a fan of his, and so I love what they're doing. Poor Luchasaurus, he's kind of the vehicle for Christian, but whatever works. And then you have Christian in there. I mean, well, and then Luchasaurus was helping him win last, he was pulling on people's legs and stuff like that. But yeah, Christian, he's great. I love that guy. He is the best. But yeah.
It is pouring on me right now. Well, not like on me, but outside.
Yeah, it's rumbling here. It was storming right before the show, and I think it's getting ready to pick up again. So.
Yeah, it's decided to start.
Maybe pouring. Mother Nature is mad because women aren't getting their due, so maybe she's mad about it too. But right. Yeah, so I think we covered a lot. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, I think we got to everything today.
Yeah, we did, and we went a little in reverse, but I think it ended up working out because
I liked it.
We had a lot to talk about, but
things happen.
So make sure, again,
you got to roll with it.
Yeah, you got to roll with it.
Improvise.
Yes. Yeah, Sky Blue has come a long way. She really has. She looks great. And she, like I said, she seems to improve every single week. I thought her match with Taya was really good last night. I really like her a lot. She seems to be, and then of course in Chicago where she's from, she has she gets huge pops every time she's there. So I'm really excited to see if you give women these opportunities. Look at this, look at Sky, look at the opportunity she's been given and she's running with it. And so just proves my point. But yes, so before we go, just make sure that you have subscribed to our YouTube channel. We do definitely make sure that you subscribe because with the two big shows coming up with AEW, looks like Fight Game Media is going to be busy. We will be doing some stuff. We'll be here for we'll be doing our normal pre shows. Just they're going to be, one of them is going to be at a different time because All In is at a different time. And so make sure you're subscribed.
We're planning. We'll fill you guys in.
Yeah, we're working on getting things scheduled now. That's okay, Gray. I knew what you were saying. Sky Blue. It's all, we got it. I know it's always trying to mess up. It always thinks it's smarter than us when it's not. But so definitely make sure you're subscribed because Fight Game Media is definitely going to be covering both of those shows pretty well. Like we love covering the pay-per-views over here. So
yeah, we do. We have a lot of fun. We're gonna try and get. We always love to bring on some special people and do some fun things. And yeah, we're gonna do the same for both of these. So
yeah, because we have back-to-back shows in a few weeks. We've only got like 6 weeks, so we're getting that figured out for you. But in the meantime, we will be here every week at our normal time of 1 p.m. Eastern. And make sure you're subscribed and go check out the Patreon and go check out the free shows, or do like Daza did and subscribe so you get access to stuff earlier. Like my interview is currently up on the Getting to Know. I'm sure it will be on Facebook on YouTube soon. Nikki said, I enjoy this conversation. Maybe it helps some people who hadn't thought of it that way. I hope so. And that's why we have the conversations we have.
Thank you, Nikki.
Regardless of where women wrestle, I am always going to advocate for women. I'm always going to advocate for more time, more storylines, more opportunities, and that goes. And so I said to Nikki the other night, I don't know how long I'll have to say it about AEW letting women main event like I did because we were on that for weeks.
I know, right?
With Athena getting to main event, I was like, I might have to be on it for another year. But at this
you're gonna keep bothering Tony. I mean, you're obviously making a dent in people's consciousness because they wouldn't be making comments like stopwatch types.
Yes,
if that wasn't. You can be as mad about that or not mad about it as you want to for whatever reason you are or aren't mad about it, but. Like there's a valid go look it up if you want to. Sam's explained it a million times, but I think more than that is that like it matters.
It does. And yeah, so yeah, and we're
All
always
right.
going to advocate for women to just have more. And so I will use my platforms, which is this show or writing, to advocate, and or timing matches on Twitter to advocate for women to get more time. And so now AEW is on the clock because they are literally the only big promotion who has not done a women's main event. And no, I don't want them to have a women's main event for the sake of having one, but give them the opportunity. Do what you've done with Athena. Give them the stories, give them the matches, give them the characters, give them the opportunities to shine so people want to see them main event. I mean, even more than we already do. So give them that. Like, look at the way on the matches where Britt and Thunder Rosa have main evented Dynamite, and how fans like women want fans want to see women main event. Like, you, that's undeniable, especially after this weekend. Like, you can no longer deny that people will pay to watch women, even if you put it as Christian and Packer main event. I mean, Claudio and Packer main eventing. And then some people will not buy your pay-per-view if you don't let the women main event.
Right.
So, so I will keep banging the drum, even if it takes another year for AEW to let women main event the pay-per-view. I'm just gonna keep being noisy about it, and
Sweet.
just
Squeaky wheel.
Yes. But yeah, so thank you guys for staying in for this discussion and joining in, and especially for those who stayed in the comments. We appreciate that too. And we will be back next week at our regular time, and hopefully have good things to talk about. And
We will.
If we have to bang the drum some more next week, we'll just do that too.
All right, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye.